So I was going to ask you a lot of questions about raise the age, and I'm not, because Senator Young asked you a lot of questions. But I know that there's been a great deal of talk around the Capitol in the aftermath of last session about caseloads in the criminal matters involving those counties that are non-Harrell-Harring counties. And I'm not going to ask you about that either, because I wanted to ask you about the impact that civil legal service money provided by the judiciary, I guess it's about $100 million last year, has done to, or what impact it's had on civil caseloads in the court system.
Well, it's had a very positive impact, and not to say that there still aren't, many people who come into the civil courts without a lawyer, but the money that the legislature has authorized and that we've given out in grants to some 70 to 75 civil legal service providers across the state, that's money that, by the way, goes to every one of the state's 62 counties. It's had an enormous impact on people's lives, all kinds of people, poor people, working people who can't afford a lawyer, veterans, senior citizens, victims of domestic violence, really across the board. It's had a dramatic impact on the lives of thousands and thousands of people. But I can't sit here today and tell you that it solved the problem of the justice gap in this state, but it's been a major step forward, a major progress for this state, and an achievement that everyone in this room can take pride in and take credit for.
Can you tell us which cases needs are unmet right now? I mean, I know we've met a lot of needs in the community out there for civil legal services, but who has not been served?
There's still a majority of people in eviction proceedings still don't have an attorney. A substantial number of people facing foreclosure don't have an attorney. A very substantial number of people who are being sued over consumer debt default don't have an attorney. And there are other examples of that. Those are the kind of the three top examples that come to mind.
Thank you. I was very interested in the questions asked by Senator Young about raise the age. And I know in my heart that there's little appetite in some places in the legislature for violent felony offenders or people who are not low-level, nonviolent offenders, that we ought to maybe do that first, and I understand the reason for it. But isn't it appropriate, or do you think that it's those offenders who are violent that need the services of the family court more than those who are we putting in the family court for purposes of prosecution? We're putting in the nonviolent offenders who may not necessarily need the services that the family court, probation services, as well as any technical services that could be provided in the family court that are not provided anywhere now.
Well, one could make that argument, and I know there are political considerations that impact this, but I mean, I would say it depends on the individual. I mean, you could have an individual charged with a very serious crime who could benefit greatly from more of a family court approach to the case and programs and services. And you could have someone charged with a lesser offense who might not be a good candidate for programs and services. So I guess it's somewhat arbitrary to sort of draw the line and say, this category of offenses would go to family court and this category of offenses would stay in the criminal courts. But, when you're legislating, sometimes, the lines have to be drawn and sometimes they can be arbitrary. But my answer to your question would be it depends on the individual and who the individual is in the problems and the needs of the individual probably more important than the particular crime that's being charged in the case.
I mean, I haven't looked at all of the states and how they treat violent felony offenders, the ones that have raised the age of criminal responsibility. But I'm pretty sure that most of them take into account that these are violent felons in some way, shape, or form, but want to provide them services and get them those services in the family court. And if they need punishment, there's also punishment that's available in the juvenile court as well.
Yeah, and let me just say, I'm not to, I don't mean to denigrate the criminal courts in any way, because there are programs available and services available to judges and offenders in criminal court cases as well. But the orientation in the criminal courts is very different from family court. Family court is all about addressing the needs of the best needs and the best interests of the youth in the case before the judge. And that's what family court's been all about. That's family court's orientation. And there are programs available, for offenders in the criminal courts, but it's not the primary focus, and it's a different orientation in the criminal courts than what you have in family court.
Thank you, Judge.